This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Doesn't seem to derive much enjoyment. It just comes from proving to people that he can do things, and he's got an air of just someone who is against the world, and he's just trying to prove himself always.
Yeah.
So he's driven by that, whereas I guess you're right, Sean Parker is
Driven
loving
by
the lifestyle.
money,
and-
fame,
yeah, the hedonist.
Because
interns.
Hello, listeners. You've reached episode 74. In this episode, we are joined by Phil,
hello.
Nick,
Hi.
and as always, Kobe.
Hello.
And we are reviewing the 2010 David Fincher film, The Social Network. Come find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod. Visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings, and don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us an awesome review.
So guys, just as a big reminder, all films on the podcast were available on Netflix at the time of recording. There will be bad language, there will be spoilers. I hope you enjoy it. See you later.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast. Our guests in the studio today are Phil and Nick. If you would like to say hello and introduce yourself to our listeners, please.
Hi, I'm Nick. I work for Empire Magazine as features editor, and that's about it.
And on the podcast, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
I am on the podcast occasionally.
Yeah.
Yes.
You also had a starring role as Edmund.
Yes. If you pause and zoom in, you can see me in the film Jurassic World, one of the biggest blockbusters of all time. I play idiot clapping at Mosasaurus about half an hour into the film. I'm in one shot.
So the Mosasaurus is the big whale-type dinosaur.
It's the big, watery, meg type thing. Yes. And yes, I got splashed.
To the listener and the reader of the podcast, of the magazine, I think doing like on-set visits is one of the things that people really like to get to be involved in. Are they good? Do they get boring after a while? Or are they?
No, I mean, occasionally you get a boring one.
Yeah.
But even the boring ones are kind of cool. Entourage. I went on Entourage, the movie, and I got flown to Hollywood to watch them filming a scene. And it's Entourage, so you're expecting babes and flashy cars and amazing parties. And we watched the actor who plays Turtle parking a car, just parking the car. We watched it about 8 times, and then they said, tomorrow we're doing the biggest party we've ever done in Entourage history in this mansion. I was like, great, well, I'm off to the airport. But no, generally they're good. And that was a good one, Jurassic World.
Yeah.
I got to watch Vincent D'Onofrio have his arm bitten off by a raptor. And pretty good.
Cool. Phil, who are you?
I'm the global film editor of Time Out magazine and website and whatever other digital channels that we have available. And I was previously at Empire as well.
And you guys being brothers, what were your kind of film habits? Who's the older brother?
I'm the older brother.
Yeah. Were you schooling Nick as he?
I schooled Nick.
Yeah.
I did. What did I make you watch?
One of my earliest memories is watching Total Recall from behind the sofa as you and your friend Rich, I think you guys had rented it.
Yeah.
I was way too young for Total Recall, so hence the hiding behind the sofa. But yeah, Phil introduced a lot of my, and Phil used to read Empire, so I would read his hand-me-down issues, and that's kind of how we both got into film in the first place. So it's weird that we both ended up working there.
You got there first, obviously. We still have those copies, those old copies
in the attic.
Oh, really?
In the attic, yeah.
Wrapped in bin bags, I think.
Yeah. I had this weird, yeah. this weird situation with Peter Strickland, who is the director of Duke of Burgundy and Katalin Varga and a few others, where he was also, I mean, he's a hardcore art house director in a lot of ways, but he was also a big Empire reader, and he is trying to give me these copies of Empire from his childhood as well.
Really?
Yeah, he's given me half of them. There's still a bunch more to come, so we can fill in any gaps.
Tell him to go to a car boot sale.
I did say, just give them to, find another deserving.
I think
home for
eBay,
them,
people from eBay.
How much can you get for them? Because I've got quite a lot at home. I don't think I've got definitely not the first issue, but quite close.
I think you've got a good collection and have come from a Peter Strickland type home. I think they'll raise at least £10.
Yeah, I think so. I think I gave him a tenner for them. So yeah, I think he feels like he's in debt to me for them. There's some sort of blood oath to get me these copies. But yeah,
so Phil is at the artier end of the film watching spectrum. So to give you a sort of taste of that, a few Christmases back, Christmas was fast approaching, and we're thinking of Christmas movies to put on for the whole family. And Phil suggests The Bitter Tears of Petra van Kant, which is a black and white German film.
It's not black and white.
It's not black and white.
It's German.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch it, but it's a German film about a suicidal woman.
I mean, what's wrong with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? When the whole family's around together.
It wasn't the whole family.
It's a Wonderful Life,
I'm gonna. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it was an unusual choice, no question. But I wasn't expecting the family to gather around and watch it. It was really just something I would just put Nick through as part of my advanced schooling. Yeah, Fassbinder at Christmas, I wouldn't recommend necessarily. No, I mean, we sort of passed that DNA, I guess, back and forth a bit, because Nick's passion, enthusiasm for
Chevy Chase,
for Ghostbusters 2, for instance.
Yeah.
It's
better than the first one.
Infectious like an illness.
I've not won a lot of people to.
No.
I've actually been in an opportunity where I've asked Ivan Reitman, Bill Murray, Rick Moranis, and Dan Aykroyd for a bit of support with this theory. Not one of them has agreed with me. We asked Wes Anderson as well, didn't we? He wouldn't get drawn into it.
No.
We did.
We did ask him. Why did we ask him?
I don't know.
We have done a few interviews together, and they've usually gone quite badly.
Has anyone agreed with you?
Yeah, a few Empire readers. I've been banging on about this for like 10 years. And so I wrote a spirited, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, I can't work out, defense of Ghostbusters 2. And I've had people get in touch to say they agree with me. It's got a better villain.
I quite like Ghostbusters 2.
No, I like it, but Ghostbusters 1 is better. That's the argument.
It's a fact, isn't it? I mean,
It's a theory. Ghostbusters 2 has got a better villain.
Yeah.
It's got a simpler, easier to follow plot. No one can tell you what's going on with the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper and all that stuff. Anyway.
It's got a baby.
It's got a baby. It's got an evil nanny with a pram flying around. I think it's better.
That's wrong, isn't it?
It's the incorrect answer, as I stated earlier. Ghostbusters 2 for me was when my brother went to see it with his friends for like a birthday party. And I wasn't friends with that guy, and I was absolutely gutted. I remember crying that I get to see. I think I had to see it with my parents afterwards, which is nowhere near as cool. Anyway, we're here to talk about The Social Network, which is your film, Phil.
I picked this film.
Yeah. Can you tell us in 2 minutes what happens and also why you brought it to the table?
In 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes synopsis.
Sure, okay. Well, The Social Network is effectively an origin story for Facebook, or as it was called back then, the Facebook. And prior to that, Face Mash, and it's very essence, a kind of a jocks meets nerds story about these kids out of Harvard, and in particular, obviously Mark Zuckerberg, who everyone doesn't really need introducing, played by Jesse Eisenberg, and his relationship with Andrew Garfield's character Eduardo Severin, who basically set up what we now know as Facebook. So you're seeing the beginnings of this epic invention, and the beginning of, I guess, the digital economy. And then from there, with variety of sort of other characters who come into conflict with Zuckerberg, it becomes more of a kind of a legal battle, basically, for the ownership of stock in this company. So it's kind of a character study, and it's kind of a sort of Shakespearean drama about, greed and about the desire for power and the pursuit of an idea.
And why did you choose it for us today?
I mean, I don't know. It's not, I'll be honest, it's not a film that I have a great emotional connection to, but it just felt like it would be an interesting one to talk about at this point.
Sure.
Because obviously the way that we see Facebook now is probably a little different from how we might have seen it when we saw the film. And when all of this sort of played out in the first place. And I just felt like it'd be an interesting one to sort of bring to the table and see what everyone kind of thinks in retrospect and revisiting it. Also, I think Fincher's films, especially with this one's scripted by Aaron Sorkin, who won the Best Adapted Screenplay because it was based on a book by Ben Mesrick, are very dense. And there's a lot to unpack. And I've only seen it once, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to have another look and see what we may have missed or what feels different.
So do you see it, that first time was when it first came out?
Yeah, I saw it on the big screen when it first came out. And I've obviously gone back and looked at it again on sort of the smaller screen. Yeah.
No. What were your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I really like this film. This is actually my second time watching it. I hadn't seen it since it came out, so it's the first time watching it on the small screen. And yeah, I think it's just it's really, really well done. It's a potentially boring story. Yeah. Or it's mostly people sitting in rooms, either talking or looking at screens. But Fincher, I think, is the only director who could elevate it as much as he does here. It's such a glossy film. Every shot is, I don't know, it's just got something about it. It's got a sheen. It looks beautiful, meticulously put together. The soundtrack is incredible, obviously. And the performances are great. And I was gripped all over again, even though I kind of knew the story.
Helen?
I'm a big David Fincher fan, and this is one of my favourites. It's interesting because the three things it won Oscars for were screenplay, editing, and sound. And rewatching it again, just those are just so good, really good. Trent Reznor and
Atticus Ross,
on the soundtrack. I mean, it's all. I always think that he slightly sort of remade Fight Club when he made this a little bit, in with the sound and the editing and kind of the dual.
Did he do the soundtrack for?
No, he didn't. That was the Dust Brothers. But it's that kind of similar sound. They're very, very similar in the soundtracks. And it also features a very early Rooney Mara performance as well.
Well, Fincher went on to work with Rooney Mara in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Was that his next film after this?
No. Yeah, I think it was actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was one.
We should probably have this at our fingertips, shouldn't we?
I'll check.
This followed on from Benjamin Button. Which got a lot of Oscars recognition, but was largely terrible.
Boring.
Yeah, very bad.
And then I think it was Dragon Tattoo. And then a bit of a gap.
That came after this, directly after it.
And then
directly
Gone Girl.
after?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything between Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl?
No.
He started to do more television type projects, obviously.
Yeah,
House of Cards and such like.
Yeah, he started. He produced and he produced and directed the first episode of House of
Calvin
Cards.
Klein advert and a Justin Timberlake video.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Justin Timberlake obviously plays Sean Parker in this, who is the sort of master genius behind Napster.
Yeah. I think I was going to say the combination of Aaron Sorkin scripts and David Fincher is
dynamite.
Yeah. Just dynamite. Like you say, dynamite. I think Aaron Sorkin, I don't know how he writes his scripts. They're so dense, and you have to get the right kind of actor as well that can just relay what he's put on paper in such a fantastic, concise but clear way.
Yeah, there's one bit of dialogue I wrote down because it tickled me so much. Dating you is like dating a stairmaster, which Rooney Mara says in the first scene, that sort of breakup scene, which is so beautiful. Just to open with that really long, talky scene is so confident, but your grip straight. It's Fincher's just going. We're so confident about this story, we're just going to hit you with this straight away. But great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you were saying there, Kobe, about the actors. That I just discovered today, in fact, this amazing making of documentary about this film.
Okay,
it's on the IMDb page, so like I couldn't recommend enough checking it out. It really gets into the nub of like Fincher's technique of working with the actors, and they say exactly that. In fact, Sorkin says that he's like, with this script, there was no deviation from no sort of. Every word, there's a bit where you see Sorkin actually just come in and saying you said wherever instead of something else, and you have to say it's so dense, you have to get every word right. And they talk about that they needed the best young actors, and we'll probably come on to talk about the actors that they picked, but they've all gone on to do bigger and better things. So the casting was just spot on because a few of them didn't really have a lot on their CV. Armie Hammer didn't really have a lot on his CV at that point. I think Andrew Garfield was well known here for TV work, but wasn't really big in the US.
But I'm sure they all went on to better things.
Well,
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to say better things. That was.
Who has?
But
I'm not sure. There's quite a few actors who they all became big.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I meant better. Yeah, better loosely. I mean, bigger. I guess bigger for them, for their careers at least. They've gone on to have other opportunities. But yeah, that opening scene is a good place. What did you think, Helen, about that as the sort of Fincher opener?
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? Because you're not quite sure
what this film is.
Yeah, you're not quite sure what the film is, and you're also like, well, that's Mark Zuckerberg, but this is about Facebook, so why are we sort of having this conversation? Who is this girl? And it's all very clever. It's all links into the end of the film again, kind of like Fight Club does as well, to go back. And I mean, I really like Jesse Eisenberg in this. I think he's great. He really nails that kind of nerdiness just right.
It was him and Michael Cera at one point were kind of the two nerdy guys, weren't they?
Can you imagine Cera being in this?
No.
Oh, really?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't have that nastiness that's
The
kind of
edge,
just
the
beneath
prickly.
the surface.
Something pretty interesting about this film is that it's always when he's rejected that he's pushed to succeed more.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's interesting. It opens with this scene that kind of propels the whole story.
Directly after this, he makes face mash.
He runs off, and he's motivated by these bad emotions, revenge, and pride and ego, and so he's driven to the top by all that stuff. It's really interesting.
Let's talk about actors. I think Jesse Eisenberg, obviously maybe Justin Timberlake is probably the most famous person in the film at the time, from a different angle though. But where was Jesse Eisenberg in his career at that point? Was it post Zombieland?
He just made Zombieland and Adventureland, his land duo, as I think he probably doesn't refer it.
Another one in soon, doesn't he?
He needs the land trilogy. And he'd done The Squid and the Whale with Noah Baumbach a while before that. So he would have had a profile, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, he's quite a sort of self-effacing dude in real life, Jesse Eisenberg. And I think he probably talked about how he wasn't expecting to get this plum role. You see in this making of doc, I mentioned that the opening scene in the bar, the 99 takes of it, but they loved, I think both of the actors loved doing it. He's just the meat of it, of doing this. And Fincher's notes are very involved, very involved and precise. They clearly brought the best out in him. I think if there's a weakness in the film for me watching it again was that the first half is pretty kinetic, especially that opening, and it just does so much, that first scene. I get, what is it, like 15 pages of dialogue or something, but you learn.
Is that how much it is?
Something like that, yeah. It's about 15 minutes. Is it 10, 15 minutes? Something like that.
Well, the date scene or the face mask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think it's a chunk of time. And, you see them recording it with actual people, everyone around them, background talking, which you normally don't have on set. Everyone's sort of pretending to talk. So it was a really authentic kind of acting experience for them. And you just discover his motivation, that he is this guy that's very, very thin-skinned, brilliant, genius level intellect, and maybe slightly on the spectrum in terms of his interpersonal skills, and a bit lacking in self-awareness. But as I said, the weakness for me, second half, he slightly drifts from the core of the story a little bit, and becomes a bit more about Andrew Garfield's character and a bit more about Timberlake playing this kind of manipulative entrepreneur. A lot of things going on in the second half. It's just slightly pulled focus for me from
trying to wrap it up a bit too quickly and neatly, where it probably didn't need to be.
Yeah, I felt the ending is a little low-key and low-powered. I mean, some of the criticisms of the film were that the stakes were low. The stakes are low at this
because
point.
You know what happens.
Well, you kind of know what happens, yeah. But I mean, at this point, it's not a big... There's you don't know. They didn't know it was going to become... I suppose for Garfield, he gets diddled, doesn't he, quite badly? Yeah,
I mean, there's an excellent podcast called Based on a True Story. And they... so if you don't know the story about all the films that start off with based on a true story, he goes through them and uncovers the actual history behind it. And I re-listened to that episode before coming in here today. And Andrew Garfield's character, Eduardo Saverin, the main reason they fell out, him and Jesse Eisenberg, was because Saverin was actually making the competitors to Facebook at the same time. And then he served adverts on the Facebook, directing people to that competitor whilst he's supposed to be doing stuff for Facebook. So that's That's one of the main reasons.
I did not know that. Is that really? Okay.
According to the podcast based on a true story.
The actual story and what happens in this film apparently
they do differ quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that's what he says at the start of the episode of the podcast. He says this is where David Fincher kind of went, yeah, there's a kind of through line which we're going to follow, but we're going to deviate in different places.
It's the emotional truth.
Absolutely. So after the first 2 times watching it, I was like, oh, Eduardo got properly screwed by Justin Timberlake, not Justin Timberlake, Jesse Eisenberg.
Both of them, yeah.
By both of them. But now, knowing the story a bit behind it, I kind of feel a bit more.
There's not really much sympathy
Team
for
Mark.
him.
No.
Was this kind of the first of the kind of tech biopics? Because we got 2 Steve Jobs movies after this. The successful Ashton Kutcher one, and then the Danny Boyle one. So I really like the Danny Boyle one, but it's weird. Like I don't feel the need to go back and revisit that in a way that this feels so iconic. Was this the start of that?
Well, when did you first watch this, Helen?
I assume I watched it at the cinema. I can't remember which cinema it was, but I would have seen it at the cinema.
So we all seen this twice.
More than twice.
Oh, you've seen it more than twice.
Yeah.
Okay. So us 3 have seen it twice, and the first time was in the cinema. How many times? You've seen it a few times, though?
Yeah, I think possibly at least once, maybe.
Twice more.
Time, yeah.
Because, 4 times.
I mean, I've seen Fight Club a lot, so by comparison, it's not that many.
I guess twice in 8 years for us 3, and 3 or 4 times. It's not that frequent. But I think when you suggested it, I thought, I think it's about time to watch it. It's relevant in the news, and also hadn't seen it for a while, and there's a lot of things I wanted to kind of take from it again. And when you're talking about the second half of the film, I clearly remember the first time not understanding what was going on between the 2 court cases, because often he had the same lawyers on his side, and I didn't really often know whether it was the Eduardo court case or the twins court case, and that became a lot clearer this time. So I think it does bear another watch, but maybe not like straight away afterwards.
I mean, Zuckerberg has kind of become a villain more so than ever in the real world, I think.
Post Cambridge Analytica.
Him testifying and being quite slippery about Facebook, and he's trying to repair his image now. But it's just so interesting that you've got this anti-hero there. There's no one really to root for. I guess Andrew Garfield's character, but at the center of this story, you've got this really unlikable guy. It's quite interesting that Eisenberg kind of got cast as Lex Luthor as a result of this. So he wasn't going to.
Do you think that was the main?
I think so, because he was playing good guys before, like you said, Adventureland and Zombieland, and I think his image changed, and so he started getting offered more kind of villainous roles. But he is a villain, I think, in this film.
Yeah,
Zuckerberg. He's you don't like him.
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like watching it again that Timberlake, Sean Parker is the sort of Iago. If it's a Shakespearean thing, he is. There's a scene in there's a couple of scenes, and when they have sushi, don't they? And he's always ordering, like, bring me 5 of those green cocktails, and doing all the playing really big notes. And there is one scene where they're in a nightclub, and he's just really, it's just like dismissive about the woman he's with, which is another slight issue with the film that I have. And the lighting, it like flashes, his face kind of like turns red, and there's a sort of demonic air to him. And I think it's a really good Timberlake performance. I think he's an underrated actor. But he's the guy that's kind of luring Zuckerberg towards something.
Yeah, he spots like a cash cow that he can manipulate.
Yeah, basically. He gives him that story about the guy from Victoria's Secret who sells his company for $4 million, and it turns out to be worth billions, and he goes and kills himself, which is just a really bleak piece of dialogue. Apropos nothing. But it's like, you need to A, watch out, and B, X $1 million isn't cool. What's cool is X $1 billion kind of thing. And that's kind of like, he's kind of just pulling the strings all the time. And I think Zuckerberg just feels like a bit of a blank, not a blank canvas, but I don't know. He's a guy that's really a conflict with himself, it feels to me.
Feels like a guy who does things because he can. He's not really, doesn't seem to derive much enjoyment. It just comes from proving to people that he can do things. And he's got an air of just someone who is against the world, and he's just trying to prove himself always.
Yeah.
So he's driven by that. Whereas I guess you're right, Sean Parker is
driven
loving
by
the lifestyle,
money,
and,
fame,
the hedonist.
Because
interns.
Zuckerberg made a little. Do you remember Winamp? It was like a little audio player for your PC. That. So he made a little system, little doohickey program that works alongside it. And Microsoft tried to buy it for like $2 million. This is when he was at high school, and he turned them down and said, "No, I don't think so."
Really?
So that's Zuckerberg in real
the thing
life.
He gave it for free.
Yeah.
Is that the line in the film?
So that's the kind of person he just is not focused on the money, and he really, when Eduardo's trying to monetize it straight away, he generally wasn't thinking this will be worth billions in a few years' time. He was just kind of thinking, let's just play with this and see what kind of fun I can have with it.
But at the same time, he tramples on people, and you see the Winklevoss twins trying to do things by the book, and they're just trampled over by Zuckerberg because he just doesn't care about the right way to do things or people's feelings or any of that stuff. It's irrelevant to him. He just does what he does.
What do you make of the Winklevi?
The Winklevi.
The Winklevi.
Great. I mean,
they got the one big laugh when I remember watching it. The line about when they're taking revenge. I'm 6'5", 220 pounds, and there's two of me.
Yeah.
I would watch a spin-off about them.
Yeah.
I think they're great. I mean, it's such a great bit of CG trickery. I'll be completely honest. When I first saw the film, I didn't know Armie Hammer, and I genuinely thought they were twins.
Same.
And so,
That's same, yeah.
I was it's completely convincing.
Oh yeah.
And
he'd only been in Gossip Girl and one or two other things. He was unknown really at this point.
So I think one of the main things I was looking out for on this rewatch is trying to unpick some of the joins. And the only thing I could really pick was sometimes the conversation seemed to be too precise almost, and too practiced and too rehearsed. But that's really not it.
That's Sorkin's script though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It could just be Sorkin's. And like say, if Fincher makes people do 99 takes of the same scene, then you might. It
wouldn't be as entertaining, I don't think, if it wasn't so polished and so sharp.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is basically a film about someone who wrote some code and created a social media.
It's not the kind of film you expect there to be a lot of visual effects in. So I think that's why you probably didn't see it coming. But I wonder if there were really heated, it might be in that making of you saw, but I wonder if there were really heated arguments between Fincher and the studio just going, look, you can save this many million if you just cast real twins. I mean, sort of bloody minded on Fincher's part.
A little bit, maybe. We should shout out to Josh Pence, the poor guy who was cast as one of them, and they were thinking about maybe going with another approach to the thing, that they weren't identical twins or something else, and then eventually discovered that he was going to be CG'd out. And he does appear on that featurette, the making of, and he's a bit like, yeah, I was okay with it, kind of, but not.
Do you think when he watches the film with someone, he's like, those are my legs? I'm in this film technically. Those are my legs.
Yeah, it's not like David Prowse being there watching Star Wars for the first time. That's not my voice.
Well, no, it's funny because actually this is true. We had, and I wish I could remember his name. I feel terrible off the top of my head. I can't remember, but a few years back at Empire, someone came in and helped sort of in doing some work with us, who was the body double for Sam Rockwell in Moon.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, he knew that was how it was going to play, and that Sam Rockwell had been doing the press tour and was constantly trying to say, shout out to him and say,
let's not spoil too much about Moon, though.
Yeah.
No, carry on. But I'm saying, don't give.
No, I shan't. I won't mention any of the plot stuff. But just that the studio kept saying, no, you can't. You can't say anything about this guy. You have to maintain the illusion that it's you're both people, or like the technology that we didn't, whatever it was. Anyway, but I think in this, they're quite clear that there were two actors. But I'm
going to try and find out what Josh Pence, because there were some scenes like. Did Armie Hammer know that Josh Pence was going to get wiped out?
How far did the conspiracy go?
Yeah, exactly.
All the way to the top.
He must have known but not told Armie. I don't know. It's an odd thing. I would have thought that Josh Pence knew right from the start.
It sounds from, I'm literally getting this from the doc, but it sounds to me like it was something that they were still working on and that he wasn't. Obviously, this happens in post-production. So he's there physically doing the scenes and doing the line readings and stuff, but maybe didn't know. Don't know. That's just another story to...
And then Fincher calls an Armie Hammer in one day and says, we need to record your face saying all these other lines.
Do you think he got paid twice?
Armie Hammer?
Yeah, do you think he got double salary for that?
Maybe a bit more. He has to learn extra lines.
Well, no, they do that exact thing that they do with, I guess, performance capture and like facial mapping. They had to do that with him. So he had to say the stuff and then they mapped it and then stuck it on. Poor Josh Pence. You feel for Josh. If you're out there, Josh. I'm sure he's gone on to do other things, but yeah.
Should we head on to the scores?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
We're so done with new year, new you. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
So, Phil, this is your choice.
Yes.
So you're going to lead out the scoring. Out of 5, the recommendability score.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Why did it lose that point?
It lost that point for me because I just felt like the sort of final act is slightly underpowered. Also, I think there are things in it now that are a little... the lack of female characters, like a proper female character, that aren't just there to service the male characters and to move the plot forward. And you could argue that the opening scene is all about that, but I mean, it just works brilliantly. It's certainly an issue, you know, and it ends with Rashida Jones's character telling Zuckerberg that he's actually not such a bad guy deep down after all, which I think is dubious when you see the film. So probably those slight hesitations, but it's a brilliant film. And I'd recommend it heartily to anyone who hasn't seen it.
Nick?
I'm going to go 4 as well, actually. It's not right up in my top tier of David Fincher films.
What's up there?
7, Fight Club, Zodiac.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Those are my favourites. This is just underneath those, I'd say. I really enjoyed it the second time. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan
and
of the game.
The game is good as well.
Underrated Fincher, that
the
one.
Game is excellent. And and I love the soundtrack. I go running to the soundtrack quite a bit.
I listened to the soundtrack today for the first time, and I posted on Facebook a few months ago looking for great soundtracks you can actually do work to and just be kind of enveloped by it. And it's
a good thread, that.
Yeah, it is. I go back to it so many times.
Give it a bump so people can add to it.
Isn't it a bit glitchy and unsettling for work?
But it's not like super bombastic.
No.
And sometimes I find a need to just like zone out for a bit, and those kind of glitchy things bring me back into the, oh shit, I need to be doing stuff. So I think it's a perfect working soundtrack. Helen, recommendability.
I'm also going to give it a 4. Had I not seen it again, I probably would have automatically given it a 5, but watching it again and kind of realizing that it's not actually based on that much of a true story in terms of what happened, and also, you know, we've got no idea whether, you know, Zuckerberg is like that, and it's a lot more fictional than I think I had it in my mind from the first time I saw it. So that was like, oh yeah, this actually might not have actually happened. This is just from, you know, the script and Fincher's mind. So and the kind of the Winklevi story kind of takes it a little bit away from the relationship he's got with Eduardo and takes the story a little bit there, and the ending is not quite as perfect as I remembered it, but it's still brilliant. It's still really dazzling, but yeah, not quite at the top of the Fincher canon.
I'm going to go a bit higher, 4.25, I reckon. It's good fun. I think most people should see it. And it's like we said a few times, for a premise which sounds achingly boring, it just isn't. And there's not much action in it. There's not much like crash bang wallop. But like I say, if you're not into it by the first kind of 10 minutes of that scene between Rooney Mara and Jesse Eisenberg, then you might as well dial out. But I can't see many people who even have a passing interest in film wanting to dial out at that point. So 4.25.
Repeat viewing.
Yeah. Phil.
Repeat viewing. Again, probably a 4 for me.
Yeah.
I think it's something. I think.
Time.
Yeah. Loved it second time.
Yeah.
The script. I mean, it feels like I remember once going to see a play in the West End that was by Tom Stoppard, The Real Thing, and there was this weird thing where his writing is so sharp that the audience laughed at the jokes like a split second later than the line was delivered in unison. It was like our brains couldn't process it, and this is a bit like that. Everyone is talking so fast, and the dialogue is precise but overlaps, and there's just a lot going on all the time. So I think it really lends itself to repeat viewings. There's also fun curios like Aaron Sorkin cameos in it.
What does he cameo? I don't know what it looks like.
Oh,
He's not that tall. He's got glasses.
He's sitting down
I didn't
in the film.
spot him.
It's not helpful.
Yeah,
He's about 5'10", sitting down throughout.
Obscured by a pillar.
He's an ad guy. They go and him and Severin, Eduardo wants to get ads on the thing. And Zuckerberg's disinterested in that idea at that point because he's fallen under the spell of Sean Parker, and he just sits there and makes that weird noise. Like
is that
like
that's
in
what is that sound?
Hereditary.
Thank
That
you,
noise.
Helen. Exactly.
That
The
noise.
weird.
Yeah.
So
No, I
you're
can't
saying
do
Aaron
it.
Sorkin should have been cast in Hereditary?
Yes, as one of the. Yes, one of
No spoilers.
no spoilers. Yes. So, what were we talking about?
Repeat viewing.
Repeat viewing. Definitely watch
You
it
said
again.
4.
Watch it again.
Is this something now? I mean, you said it's been 8 years between us three have seen it, Nick, Phil, and I. Do you think you're going to see it more frequently, or you just think you need to watch it again and you're happy to watch it again? Should it happen?
Weirdly, Nick mentioned it, but I'd actually quite like to see. After seeing this, want to see the Steve Jobs movie again, which
Right.
I think was again
The
quite
Danny Boyle
underrated.
one.
Did really badly.
Or the Ashton Kutcher one?
Seems the Danny Boyle one. Sorry,
The Ashton
Ashton.
Kutcher one, I think, is on Netflix at the moment.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Is
Well, no,
the
it's
other one
recent.
on as well?
I think it definitely was,
Oh, it
but I don't
was.
know if it's on
The
at the
thing
moment.
is that
Pauline X.
Ashton Kutcher looks an awful lot like Steve
That
Jobs in
was
that film.
wholly
And
why he was
Michael
cast.
Fassbender looks literally nothing like him whatsoever. So there's something to be said for that. And
One
physical
great
something.
film in there.
Yeah,
Between
maybe.
them both.
Yeah.
And that's
Maybe
a film
they
that
should CGI Ashton Kutcher's face onto Fassbender's.
onto Fassbender's like acting ability.
There we go. That's
Yeah.
what Fincher should use the CG for.
That's it. That's right.
It's another Aaron Sorkin script.
Aaron
And again,
Sorkin,
it's,
Fincher.
You know,
Is it
well, no,
Fincher?
Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle,
sorry, yeah.
for Steve Jobs, but yeah. But I'm not going to rush back to watch Social Network again. But I guess also I just find the Facebook thing quite depressing at the moment. So, but yeah, I'm sure I'll see it again at some point.
Nick.
I'm going to say 2. And that is not a comment on the film. As I said, I really enjoyed the film. I just feel like it's one that I'm very rarely going to return to. I don't think I'm going to get home on a Friday night and go, right, time for the Social Network.
Sure.
So it's been 8 years and I'm happy I rewatched it, but I don't think I'm going to watch it again for another 8 years at least.
Set the alarms, guys.
I'll stick your alarms for 2026. I will listen to the soundtrack more often than that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's very dense, as you say. So I think I maybe got more out of it this time. I was happy to spot Tim from Jurassic Park. I'd forgotten he was in it. Joseph Mazzello,
Oh,
the little kid from Jurassic Park.
oh, is he grown up? Who is he?
He's in the early college scenes. He's like his mate in the
Oh,
college
okay.
at the beginning.
Nice.
He's in the Pacific as well, the miniseries, which is very good.
Which I need to watch because I love Band of Brothers to bits, and someone told me that Pacific just isn't as good.
Not as good. No, it's not
I just
as good.
didn't want to get into it. But is it worthwhile?
Yes.
Yes,
Pacific, okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I did a bit of reading up on the film after I watched it, and there's so much there. There's so many different avenues you can go down. They mention a movie star in passing who was at Harvard at the time, but they don't name
Yes.
him or her. Do you know who that is?
No.
I looked it up. Natalie Portman.
Oh,
She was
of
at
course.
Harvard with Zuckerberg,
Right.
and she actually consulted on the script with Sorkin, and so she helped Sorkin write the script. I mean, I'm sure she didn't write that much of it, but she told him about what it was like there. So that's interesting.
Very interesting.
What were your thoughts on this kind of? It wasn't a fraternity. It's this kind of Phoenix Club. Is like the Uber fraternity. You don't see that kind of stuff much outside of. You don't see that stuff at all about from the Riot Club, which is a pastiche on the.
Don't know, Sheffield University got pretty.
It got pretty hairy, didn't it?
when Chesney Hawkes came by. Yeah, those scenes are great. They get really. It goes with the music playing over the top, really sort of hedonistic feel. I'm sure it was less glamorous in real life
than it actually was.
Yeah.
It's there are large chunks of the first half of the film that it's just there's jocks and the nerds, and it's just quite a classic kind of American college movie in a lot of ways. It's like Porky's with an IQ of about 1 million, which are played really well, and it keeps cutting between Zuckerberg sort of stewing and all of these, you know, hot babe party drug fuel bacchanalias with all of these kind of like the jocks, the popular guys. So it's the same tropes as normal, but played out with stuff.
One thing I really liked about that scene with the face mash is that you can see the girls are bust into that Phoenix Club or whatever club it was, and they are getting off each other. They're meant to kiss each other and do all that kind of nonsense. And at the same time, the nerdy guys were also kind of undermining women with their asking to rape people. And it's only when the lady's leaning over the laptop and looking at the screen saying, guys, what are you actually doing? That's so wrong. But not the other stuff wasn't wrong.
No, she busts them in, don't they?
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
So it's a nice kind of, I thought that was a really nice kind of juxtaposition of those two.
He skewers a lot of this stuff really subtly, Sorkin and Fincher.
There's a lot of toxic masculinity.
There is, and I think he was aware of it. I don't know about you guys, when you're watching films, I know you have a problem with this, because we talked about it on the Empire podcast before, with like when people have phone calls and they don't say goodbye at the end. So you worry about the person at the other end still having the phone and going, hello. But I worry about stuff like, if someone's left the bath running in a scene and then they go on to another thing and I'm still worrying about the bath about 10 minutes later. I was worried when they did the algorithms on the window. I was like, are they going to be able to get that off? I don't know if that's a natural thing to think, but I was there going, this is great, but is that a permanent marker pen? Because that could be a nightmare.
I do have concerns like that when I watch. It used to be a big thing for me in a pre-Uber world where people just seemingly leave a taxi without paying. Now, obviously with Uber, that's perfect. But you just
thank God for Uber. I can watch a film again.
But that kind of thing was like, when did he pay for that? When did she pay for that?
These things are
stressful.
Yeah.
No.
But that's all of the science, all of the maths in the film, just done in one snazzy Aaron Sorkin-y moment.
Eduardo,
elegant like that.
I need your algorithm.
Do something on the window, and then we can get that out of the way and move on to the less nerdy nerd stuff.
I work for a couple of startups, and we do write stuff on Windows. I'm not sure if it's
people steal it though. If you write it on the window and you've got
it's perfectly
spies.
fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, but spies stealing your code and.
Oh yeah, but this is like Windows looking out from like quite high up.
Okay.
I want to tell someone I need their algorithm. Sounds like a cool thing to say.
Helen, repeat viewing score. You've seen this 3 or 4 times.
I don't quite know how many times. I've definitely seen it more than the once at the cinema. I don't know. It's been a long time since. And I think it really does reward the return viewing. A particularly nice bit, I noticed that when they're kind of doing the face mash, Jesse Eisenberg throws a dart behind him and it goes into the guy's beer cup that he's sitting there. And little things like that are quite fun to notice. So I have 4.
4. I'm a bit of a 3.2. Watch it again at some point. Not sure when. Maybe like 6 years' time. I'll set my alarm.
You get super granular with your
I guess worse than
I feel
that.
like I should throw in.
I didn't know we could get into 0.2s.
You can. This is a spreadsheet. Adam Buxton went to Pi.
He picked Pi for something.
Yeah, he picked Pi for something. I think it might have been.
Wasn't the film Pi?
I think it was the Squid and the Whale.
Yeah.
The Squid and the Whale. He chose Pi for the score.
That would be too meta.
Yeah.
Pi.
Wow.
Small screen score.
Okay.
Phil.
Yeah. I'm going to go 3.92.
I was going to pick that. Damn you.
Yeah. I mean, it loses very little. I mean, it's brilliantly shot and great kind of color palette to differentiate between, because there's lots of different timelines and different narrative threads happening. So it navigates you through that really well. I particularly love the Henley tilt shift scene where everything's in miniature and they're playing
the Alton Towers music. Did you get that?
Yeah, the Greek, the mountain,
the Hall of the Mountain King.
Is that? Oh yeah, of course, that's from Alton Towers.
Yeah.
That's probably where he got it from Nemesis.
Yeah,
he was like, I got it. Eureka. So there is visual stuff in it, but it is a film in rooms, isn't it? It's an Aaron Sorkin thing, people in rooms talking.
And there's not much walking and talking in this, is there?
Sitting and talking.
There's not much walking.
Computing and talking.
There's rowing and talking.
There's rowing and talking, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of rowing. So it's just the most rowing in a kind of major Hollywood film.
Oh, come on. How many of those like 80s or even 90s Bruckheimer like set in Boston, everyone has to row at least in one scene? Don't they? Like, isn't that a thing?
Yeah.
A movie thing starts
Jerry
with...
Bruckheimer films in the 80s.
Well, I'm thinking of...
I'm trying to remember like...
No, I mean, there are plenty of Bruckheimer films in the 80s, but I'm thinking probably more 90s.
I don't know what are you thinking of Varsity Blues?
No, it's just there's tons of like establishing shots of Boston always have Harvard rowers rowing down the river. It's just, that's a movie thing, isn't it?
Mm.
Okay, maybe it's just me. Anyway, I'm giving it 3.92, yeah.
Nick?
Well, I'm going to probably go 3.3 for this one. Because, yeah, you can watch it at home happily, but I love the soundtrack so much.
Yeah.
And it's so beautifully shot. I think seeing it on the big screen again would actually be a great experience. Yeah, I'll go 3.3.
Helen?
I'm going to give it a 4. If you get the chance to see it at the cinema, then please do, because I mean the soundtrack and the editing are fantastic, and like you were saying about the different color palettes, that really does and it's got that kind of Fincher greyness in it, which is really nice to watch, but it doesn't really lose that much, I don't think, watching it on a normal size TV. And if you haven't seen it, then you definitely should.
I'm going to go 3.9. 3.9. I think if someone points out the soundtrack to me just this morning, I thought, yeah, I don't actually remember it. Then I put it on and it was like properly fully enveloping, and I listened to it all today. So I would, if I watched it again, if it came on in cinema, I would go and watch it purely to get the wave of the soundtrack over me. And I think Fincher's worked with Atticus Ross and
was 7.
Is 7?
I think.
No, this is his first. This was the first.
The beginning, but then Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, they definitely worked together again.
Yeah.
Atticus Ross had done soundtrack work before, but Trent Reznor hadn't. I think it was his first.
What's the song on the 7 soundtrack? Is that not Trent? That's not. That's 9 Inch Nails, though, isn't it?
So it might be a song, but it's not scored by them. So 3.9. But yeah, definitely listen to the soundtrack, and with some nice, comfy headphones as well, because it's beautiful. Engagement score, Phil. Sorry.
Yeah, super engaged in this one. You kind of got to be really.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Yeah, otherwise, you got to sort of keep up. Challenge. I'm going to give it 4.23.
Look,
you're getting into the algorithms
Look
here.
what you've done.
I don't mind.
Phil, you're going to need to give me your algorithm.
Okay, I can't do that, bro. Maybe for Christmas.
Yeah.
Under the tree.
Nick.
Yeah, 4.5. I think there's something about the subject matter that I think is just perfect for Fincher. It's a movie made by a control freak. I think even he would admit he's a control freak. I'm sure Sorkin is a control freak as well.
Yeah.
And it's about a film about control freaks. And so there's just this everything in the film is so controlled and so meticulous. And it's about people for whom that is how they think as well. And so I just think it's kind of a perfect match of people and subject. And it's really, really works. So 4.5.
Cool. Helen.
I'm also going to go 4.5 as an average score. I mean, the first time was a 5, but upon returns, you don't have to be as engaged in it. So, and it's 2 hours.
Yep.
Doesn't feel like 2 hours.
No.
So it zips along really nicely, and that's probably because of the script really being so tight and punchy.
Because Sorkin writes like 1.5 times the amount of words compared to other script writers.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's something. It's a stupid
like
kind of
famous.
ratio. But I could never. I don't think about. I don't want to be an actor, but I couldn't be an actor in a Sorkin scripted piece because I just would not be able to get the words out. I don't know how West Wing did it week in, week out. It just seems insane to me.
Imagine doing that live. I mean, on their live episode.
Jesus,
the pressure. Yeah. But I mean, 99 takes of a scene. But I mean, Jesse Eisenberg talks about it. He's like, you often, as an actor, just do that scene where you're parking the car on Entourage. Literally.
I could do that. I could do Turtle Park in the car.
You're picking up a spoon for a day, and then you go home, and he says, you don't feel like you've sort of done your job properly. And then he does this dialogue scene in the bar at the beginning of this film, and you go home, and you're just like, wow, that's what I want to do. And I think actors love, like the actors we interview, most of them love theatre probably more than often than their film work from a purely practical point of view, because they're actually acting all the time and not sticking around. And this is probably closer to that, these sorts of things with Sorkin scripts and Fincher. It's a real kind of proper meaty acting challenge. But not in a kind of a wanky, introspective way. It brings you in as a viewer.
Yeah, definitely. I think there'll be definitely actors who would give their, fight tooth and nail to get in a Will Fincher, Aaron Sorkin scripted production. I think definitely. Just not me if I was an actor, which I don't want to be. What did you say, sorry? 4.5. 4.5. Yeah, it's going to be high for me. I'm going to go 4.5. Why not? You can't not be. If you don't like it within the first scene, then just dive out. But if you're in it, you're in it. You have to be. And that gives us 3.92.
Oh, I thought it should have got a 4.
Why did it lose points? Repeat viewing was the biggest drop.
I think I'm responsible.
With a 2, yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No, it's all right. That's how the cookie crumbles here in the Flixwatcher pod. That's fine. I think it's fair. The repeat viewing score isn't that high. Let's head to our Twitter people. we had quite a few responses. Lots of people have seen The Social Network and have an opinion about it. And as always, we reach out to Twitter before we record. In this case, we're reviewing Social Network with Phil de Semlyen and Nick de Semlyen. Tell us your thoughts for an on-air shout-out. Gives you a 5-star rating, a short review, and retweets because we want more people to see it. Guys, around the table, do you want to take this first, Phil, the first review comment?
Sure thing. From @IMDb Journey. A well-crafted script with some solid performances from some up-and-comers and a story perfectly fit for the modern era audience. And that's 4 stars and a sort of a shooting star that goes around in a circle.
So I presume it must be 5 stars. I've never seen that.
Is that a half a
That might
star?
Or a half a star, maybe.
Or is it
Could be double.
Or
supernova?
it could be like 4.25 or something.
It could be 4.25.
That's
What
very,
make your
it's very
scoring?
hard. It's a shooting star.
We'll take it as 4.25.
Okay.
Let's go for these guys. Nick.
Retro Ramble blog says a potentially pedestrian story made into a gripping drama with Fincher on slick visuals, Sorkin on sharp dialogue, an awesome soundtrack, and breakout performances from Andrew Garfield and Armie Hammer. 5 stars, ×2 for Armie Hammer.
So this was obviously it was pre-Spider-Man.
Yes.
So we had Spider-Man and Lex Luthor in the same film.
Yes.
I'd like to not think about those films.
The Spider-Man.
I like not to think about those Spider-Man films, or indeed any film with Lex Luthor made recently. No offense to Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor's fine, but
yeah,
Kevin Spacey or Eisenberg.
Yeah. It's
a slippery slope, isn't it?
I asked Michael Shannon for like a low return question. This one, that I just pointed out that he and Tom Holland, who was Spider-Man, were in the same film together, and they were both super. It was a thin question, but yeah, you get short shrift from actors for that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, we were in movies. It's what we do for a living. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Garfield was. I think he built a rep over here, especially for Red Riding at that point.
And Boyer was a decent.
And Boyer likewise. So he was on the up and up.
He's a very good actor. I liked him in Silence. Miscast.
I'm not seeing. I probably will never see Silence.
That's a hard one. Rewatchability on that is probably a 1.11 at best. But he's a very strong actor. His performance kind of drives that, and I just thought he was
one more than Adam Driver.
Hey. Very good. I just thought he was miscast as Peter Parker. And Eisenberg similarly as Lex Luthor.
Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man I've seen on screen by a country mile.
Yeah.
Helen.
So the next one is from Scheitgeist Pod. Sorkin and Fincher at the top of their games, endlessly rewatchable and a superb soundtrack. And then we've got 5 computers there.
Nice. 5 laptops.
Good emoji game.
Yeah. Phil.
At Top Film Tip, says antisocial prodigy creates generational phenomenon at a cost of his only friendship. Fincher shifts away from aesthetic stylism into story-focused work. Interesting, if a little dry. I'm getting 3 Facebook likes out of 5 for that.
Bit low. I would have thought Top Film Tip would give it a higher mark. Nick.
At the Countdown PC says, one of us likes it like a pet. The other thinks it's a better than expected telling of a story that had played out through the media. I guess we therefore settle on 3.5 stars.
Bev, you want to take Reese, who is your boyfriend's tweet?
Yeah, I'm just reading it now. So from @RegHayes, any film with Mara Rooney wins for me. Zuckerberg is brilliantly portrayed and Timberlake a winning turn. And that's 4 computer emojis.
Cool. And the final one, which came in 3 hours ago. Phil, do you want to take us home?
Sure. This is from Reese, The Situation Wilson. He sounds like he sounds like a contender in one of the later Rocky movies. At Reese, my socks off. Moody atmospheric direction, electric acting, and a genius fast-paced script turn what should have been an average biopic into one of the greatest films of the last decade. And that's got 5 shiny stars.
Nicely put.
Yeah.
So a lot more love there than we gave it.
Well, we had a bit of a mix. You had with Top Film Tip with a 3, some at 5. So I think it averages out at the 3.921.
Is your boyfriend a big fan of Rooney Mara?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting conversation. Okay, that's like I say, overall score of 3.92.
That feels right to me.
I think so.
I think we've
done it well. I think we've done it justice here in the room. Guys, can you tell us where we can find you online and sign off?
Yes, I'm at Phil de Semlyen on Twitter, and the internet writing about things for Time Out. So, timeout.com/film would be a good place to go.
I can be found rambling on about Ghostbusters 2 even more on Twitter, at Nick Semlyen, Instagram, the same handle. And I'm occasionally on the Empire podcast, which comes out on Fridays.
Cool.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. You were just listening to the latest episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Thank you to Brendan Russell for his sublime editing skills. Mighty People for the tunes you can hear right now. Please do come to iTunes and find us, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and our website, flixwatcher.tv.